Thank you very much for being here, James.
Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate that. Wow, thanks for the turnout, y'all. I know you saw it. And to the people in the other room. So I don't know if they can hear me, and I certainly can interact with them, but I'm going to do a brief show of hands for rainwater knowledge, because this presentation could go one of two ways. I can bore you with details if you already know about rainwater, or I can walk you through some rainwater stuff. So show of hands, who has lived with rainwater or knows about rainwater systems? I thought as much. Wimberley and the surrounding area is very good about rainwater. So what I'm going to do is briefly do a rainwater introduction, and then I'm going to talk about some regulatory challenges, some great benefits of rainwater, and talk about the performance this year, which I think people are interested in, and then we'll do questions and answers for a brief amount of time before you guys get to other business. Oh, I should say, my company is called Harvest Rain, and we're out of Dripping Springs. We used to be Tank Town. Some of you will know us. Richard Heineken started us years and years ago. We've got about a 30-plus year client base in the Hill Country. All right, so did it change up there?
Not yet. You should be able to hit the down arrow.
Let's try one more time.
Space bar.
There we go. Okay. I gave you all the outline. Potential for capture in Texas. A lot of you folks know it does actually rain here in most standard years. A lot of people, when they hear that, say, no way it rains enough in Texas for rainwater collection. But sure enough, there is plenty of the area of the state that averages above 26 inches. This area averages 32, which is hard to believe right now, but there's plenty of water to be captured in Texas for rainwater harvesting. Before I jump away from that average slide, we top out our residential recommendation is about 12 inches per year. Now that's really, really low, but we've done systems in Marfa where they are living on rainwater. So as long as the collection system is big enough, you can do it.
Wow.
Rainwater basics. Quick formula for potential rainwater capture. You have all this formula here, which is square feet of collection times 0.623 equals gallons produced by 1 inch of rain. The easiest way is 60% of your roof space is what you can get in gallons on 1 inch of rain. If you have 2,000 square feet, you can get about 1,200 gallons on an inch of rain. So for a 5,000 square foot residence, that's about 3,000 gallons on 1 inch, which of course at 32 inches is a lot of water per year. More than enough for a 4-person household. Quick background on the two different types of rainwater systems you see in the Hill Country. Wet system versus a dry system. This is terms we use in the industry. A dry system is what y'all see with a rain barrel, right? Gutter flying over into a barrel, water never stays in the pipe, it goes straight into the cistern. A wet system is a little different. That little asterisk right there in the middle is showing the height difference between your roof line and the tank inlet. So basically what we do on a whole house system is create a giant P-trap, like underneath your kitchen sink. So the water goes into the PVC downspouts at the gutter, goes underground, and then goes to the inlet of the tank. As long as that point of the roof is higher than the inlet, water naturally finds its way into the tank. The simplest principle in the entire world. That's how we do our whole house collection. Now, it does get a little bit more complicated once we do a potable system, right? It's not just gutters into a tank, it's all of this stuff too. So when you do rainwater for household supply, you have to control, number one, for quality. Filtration is key in rainwater collection. Filtration at the gutter level, filtration right before the tank, what's called the first flush tank. Filtration at the basket of the tank, filtration before it goes to the pump, and then of course filtration and disinfection on the way to the house. If you do all of these steps correctly, rainwater is by far the highest quality water you can have in your house. So if you set out with the correct sizing in mind, you have the roof to support it, you get the highest quality autonomous water source you can in Hill Country. Okay, now, some of the fun stuff, since all y'all know about rainwater. It is hot and dry this year, as everybody knows. I took this from the Austin American Statesman article I read the other day. That is the 30-year normal for accumulation of precipitation. That is what we are sitting at as of August 4th. We are well below where we should be. Everyone knows that. The temperature in July was 90.8 degrees, which is 5.2 degrees higher than average. It is the hottest May, June, and July on record, eclipsing 2011. How many people have been here 15 or more years in the area? Okay. So as you know with Texas, especially Central Texas, it is feast or famine with rain. We have experienced 2008, which was a crazy flood, 2011, which was the drought of record, 2014, which we all know in this area, and then of course this year. So it's up and down and up and down. 15 was wet. I mean, there's weird wet and dry years. Precipitation, 12.13 inches of rain to date. This is taken out of Austin. We are 8.4 inches below average. So, why am I bringing up what y'all already know, which is that it's hot and dry? And the reason I'm doing it is to tell you this. We called and asked our customers, how's your tank doing? And again, the first thing people say is, well, there's no way you can collect rainwater in Texas. The second thing they say is, well, if a drought hits, you're out of luck, right? We got 32 responses from the people we called. We only called 50. And 5 have called for water delivery. So that's 15% in a historic drought year. That's not too bad, I think, if the tank is sized. 18 report a tank at about 20% capacity. So if we get some rain this month, it would be great for them. 9 reported a tank at 40% capacity or higher. So this is a testament to rainwater sized correctly with the right amount of roof and used adequately in the home, not for outside irrigation or anything else, can get you through a drought of record, which we are in the middle. So again, highest quality water, and if you size it correctly, it can get you through times like this. Now, I always, when I have a captive audience, I always talk about regulatory challenges because the same people that are in this room are people that can probably affect change on the regulatory side. And I want to talk about the way rainwater is regulated right now, and then tell you why it's a little bit challenging. As of now, rainwater is considered a high hazard water source, high hazard supply. The reason for that is that the plumbers don't control it, there's no disinfection naturally in rainwater, and so people are worried about it introduced into other systems. So we have this thing called the High Hazard Backflow Prevention Device, an RPZ for short. That is required on any home that does a rainwater collection system, even at 1,000 gallons, even to water their plants. It's required anytime you're in a public water supply area, municipal water supply or rural water supply. It's incredibly expensive to retrofit, depending on where you live. It could be $1,500, it could be $3,500 for just a single plumbing fitting. And it affects unrelated water supply on the property. It brings down the PSI of the entire property if you have this fitting. So that is a current Texas law. I have sympathy toward this law because they're protecting public health. I just think it's overreaching in certain ways, especially if I want to have a 1,000-gallon cistern for my tomatoes. I don't think I need this. Rainwater is also surface water treatment standard. So there are 3 different types of water sort of in Texas that are regulated. There's groundwater, which we all know about, how it's regulated. There's surface water, which is Lake Austin. The treatments of those 2 systems are drastically different. Rainwater currently falls in the surface water category. We've been arguing for a long time that if you collect it on a roof that's clean, and you do all the adequate treatment, it shouldn't fall into this category. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, why that's important in a second. And then lastly, there's this cross-connection limitation in current plumbing code. If you live inside of Wimberley and you have Wimberley water, if you decide, I want to do rainwater harvesting, I want to have 10,000 gallons of rainwater, I want to go to that first and I'll use City of Wimberley water afterwards. You cannot have a direct connection of both supplies to your structure. No matter what, backflow prevention device, manifold valve, you just can't do it currently. So there's ways around it. There are things you can do like bring an autofill to the tank, but again, it's one of those barriers that really prevents people from going all in on rainwater. So what is the impact of those challenges? Here is a big impact that I think everyone would be interested to hear about. Small hill country businesses are forced to choose. What I mean by that are there are wedding venues, wineries, RV parks, right, that have plenty of collection surface that can capture enough rainwater to provide their clients with water. However, once they are determined a public water supply, which definition for that is if you serve 25 people a day for more than 60 days out of the year. So a wedding venue, if they have a wedding every weekend, they're probably right about that threshold. If you hit that threshold, you cannot use rainwater as a public water supply. You can, but it takes about 12 to 15 months to get through the exception process with TCEQ. We've tried a handful of times, I haven't been successful in any of them. So that's where the sort of surface water treatment standard limits us. Yes?
Peter, did that 25 people per day what?
25 people a day for 60 days out of the year is the Texas, the TCEQ non-transient, non-community public water system. Yes, there are different standards for the larger public water systems. But these are the ones that affect wedding venues, wineries, things like that. The second thing that I'm going to belabor the regulations because you are all active and can maybe say something about it. Augmented delivered water systems, which are common in the hill country, people that just put up a 5,000 gallon tank and have water delivered, right, for their customers. You currently can't augment those systems with rainwater. Again, because of the treatment standards. I think that's a huge bridge that we could have to make the augmented water delivery more self-reliant on their own water that falls in the roof. And then lastly, I mentioned this, treatment standards for rainwater as a primary source are very extreme. If we could make those a little bit less extreme, I think a lot more people would use rainwater and the impact would be greater on the water supply in the hill country. Lastly, and then I'll get to Q&A and let you guys do the rest of the meeting. The residential mixed use and augmented supply, I mentioned earlier, if someone's in Wimberley and they want to do rainwater. Right now, separate plumbing is extremely costly and nearly impossible for a retrofit. So if you were to come in and say, I want to do rainwater, oh, I'm going to make it all separate plumbing, everything in the house has to get differentiated and torn up because there can be no cross connection. So, in my opinion, solving one problem creates another. The fact that you separate the plumbing in the house means you have to go autofill into the tank. And if for whatever reason your power goes out, now you don't have the ability to turn on your faucet and just take water via city pressure, right? That's one of the best things about losing power is that you still have water most of the time. In this situation, if you're on a rainwater system and have a water autofill, you won't have it during power loss. Does that make sense? So there are a lot of little problems, I think, created by trying to solve for public health. Which, that sounds like I'm on the plumber side there, but I'm not. Okay, I'm going to put this up and then I'll do Q&A. The late Ken Butler, who is at UT, has this wonderful article about sustainable site development in the hill country. It was written in 2004. It is still remarkable to read because I think it affects people who especially live in this area. He pointed to a model where we could sustain, build, and develop neighborhoods with a very low impact on the water table and on your groundwater. So anyone who's interested in groundwater, which all of you are if you're at this meeting, should really read this article. It's available, I think still on the Hill Country Alliance website as a download. So please, that's my last pitch, is to read that if you're interested in water in the Hill Country. Okay, I flew through that because I know you'll have other stuff to talk about. Does anyone have any questions about rainwater?
Do you think these regulations have any chance to negatively impact the property tax exemption that folks can get for investing in a rainwater capture system for their home?
Repeat the question.
Oh,
To the computers or
sure.
somebody else.
So one more time, the question was, well,
Yeah, do you think, maybe it's just a speculation asking you, do you think these regulations that you just outlined have any chance to negatively impact the property tax exemption that folks get for investing in a rainwater capture system for their home?
okay, yeah, so the question for the folks in the other room is, will any of the regulations affect the property tax exemption code currently in place in the state of Texas for rainwater? So by removing them, do I think it'll affect?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so. I mean, that property tax exemption code is not, it's a nice incentive. It is not the most spectacular incentive for rainwater. I think it's really great that you don't have to have an assessed value of the rainwater system on your overall property. But in reality, that's a $25,000 to $30,000 sort of adjustment to 40 on a tax bill, whereas the ability for people to put in rainwater at a wedding venue is, I think, much greater, right? There's a much bigger impact on water supply than the personal 20 to 30 grand tax incentive. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of competing with each other a little bit,
Yeah.
so I'll stop.
No, yeah, that incentive's been in place for a long time. It's one of the first Texas rainwater laws in place. Yes, ma'am.
I heard the rumor that the time is going to come when we build something, we're going to have rainwater collection. Is that, do you see that now any place? Is it in the law any place? When can we expect it?
Yeah, so the question is, will we see a time where it's regulated that we have to put rainwater on new buildings? Texas actually does have a law at the moment that any state building over 20,000 square feet must include plans for rainwater collection. Now, I think that could go further. Any building over a square foot, private or public, would be great. But at the moment, it is any state building over 20,000 square feet. And that was in the 2011 legislature.
So that, at this point, does not affect small business, it's just the Texas government, it doesn't affect business or small business or residential building, which I'm anticipating.
That's correct. Now, that's not entirely true. Rainwater harvesting can be used as a best management practice to reduce impervious cover overages. So in places like Rollingwood or Westlake Hills, those places, they have provisions on their books that say if you're over by 900 square feet of your impervious cover, you can install rainwater collection to offset that. So there are a couple of municipalities in the area that have that.
And she reminded me, how about developments? You anticipate that developers because we're being beset here in Wimberley with people coming in and wanting to build big developments, you know, groups of houses. Will there be a time when they're required to have rainwater collection?
Yeah, I mean, we're moving that direction. So I'm sure you are all familiar with the Driftwood Golf and Ranch course that's being, or maybe you're not, but it's being built close up to Dripping Springs. It's 150 and 1826 at the intersection. So the entirety of both of those communities has to do rainwater collection as a deal brokered with the groundwater district at a minimum of 5,000 gallons collection on half of their roof space. And the idea behind that is to lessen the impact of development into Onion Creek. So in the end, and I'm personally involved with this project, so I'm telling a lot about it, but in the end, they didn't have to do that. They stuck with the need to do it because they had so many community members saying this was a great idea, and so they stuck by it, even though they weren't having to do it. So I think that's a step in the right direction. There are some developments here that are rainwater only. Terracina, Constellation subdivision, there are a couple of subdivisions that have been in place for 10 plus years that have said only rainwater as a source of water.
Wow.
So we're getting there.
That's in Dripping?
That is, yes, south of Dripping.
What are the names of those again?
Constellation, which has been around for, 18, 19 years. Terracina, which is in Dripping Springs, and then there is another one.
Gila Creek is really small.
What is it?
Gila Creek.
I don't know that one,
Off of
actually.
Crystal Hills Drive.
And they're rainwater only.
Yes.
So there's a handful of them in the area. Yes, ma'am?
And that's, the Blue Hole Elementary is totally.
It is, yes. Or the Wimberley element. It's called Blue Hole?
Blue Hole,
Yeah.
yeah. The
Blue
new
Hole
elementary.
School.
Yes, and they worked on that for quite some time, and it's a remarkable, great system. Yeah, on-site sewage treatment. Yes, ma'am?
I think I misunderstood. Did you say that for anyone that has a rainwater collection, like a 1,500 gallon rainwater collection for plants and trees or something, has to be regulated?
Yes. So, well, I'll be as brief as I can with this one. The plumbing industry went after rainwater some years ago. And the rainwater industry, which is the most robust in the entire nation, is here in Dripping Springs. I mean, we have a rainwater industry that is, compared to everywhere else in the States, is remarkable. It's the epicenter, it's huge. So we all got together, a bunch of these old rainwater guys who were just installing stuff, and said, oh, it turns out we need to play politics, we need to get in the lobby. And we fought back against the plumbers to say, don't put rainwater in your code. We put a bunch of us out of business, we're not licensed plumbers. During that tumult in the legislature, a law was passed that basically capped how much rainwater you could have and with what systems you could use before you were regulated by state of Texas. So if you have a system 500 gallons or greater and it has a pump on it, you are subject to the laws of state of Texas if you are inside a public water supply area.
Oh, okay, so if you live out in the country.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have led with that. You know, our businesses would completely be away if we didn't have people in the whole country where we could do whatever we want. within reason. Yes, ma'am.
I have been to the incredibly wonderful rainwater exhibition or
Revival?
What you have up in Dripping in the big convention center. And I guess that's the old guys you're talking about. I was incredibly impressed with the knowledge and the science behind rainwater that were, I mean, there were hundreds of people there. There were 40, 50 display areas. Is that going to happen again now that COVID is over? I want to go again and learn more.
I believe so, although I'm not plugged into the revival schedule. You know what, actually, you all might know better than I do. No? Rainwater revival?
There's no firm plans, but I would say that even if the original promoter, who is not the original promoter, decides not to do it, some third party will. It was too popular.
It was incredible.
It was.
Yeah.
And they had something in Fredericksburg too about very environmentally oriented with a lot of solar and rainwater collection.
Yes. I forgot the name of the Fredericksburg one, but that was great.
Yeah, it was a great one.
Yeah. I know y'all are ready to talk about something else. Any more questions for rainwater?
I'm just curious, but how do you define a clean roof in an area that has a ton of allergens and pollen?
No, that's a great question. And that's more on the design side, which I skipped, admittedly, because everyone sort of raised their hand. So there are types of roof that we recommend top to bottom. Slate is the best roof, but no one can afford a slate roof. Metal, standing seam metal is by far the top of the line for collection coefficiency, so it doesn't absorb, and it wipes away toxins very quickly. So any pollen falls, it's going to wash off that roof quickly in the first rain. So we don't keep a clean roof all the time, but the gutter screening, the screening down the line, the screening before the tank, all that stuff aims to catch anything that would sit on the roof in the first place. And people who know rainwater know this term, first flush, or eliminator tank, or first flush tank. It's basically a big section of pipe or section of tank that keeps the first wash of water off of the roof. So it hasn't rained here in now, what, 30 days or 40 days? When it does rain, all that pollen is going to wash off your metal roof right away, and we aim to capture all that before it gets into the tank. So it's one of the most important filtration methods. Shingle roof, we don't recommend collecting on potable, although people do it as long as you treat the water at the end site. Or assume that no one in the other room has questions. Thanks, y'all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.